And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Tuesday, January 9th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Matt Belman. We're here to break down a 5-game slate. Couple question marks in the starting lineup department, which we were just going over before this show started. Should be a fun slate, kind of a weird one, and enough value to pay up for whatever stars you want to roster. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, give a shout out to BetMGM for being the sponsor. And let's hang out for 2 straight hours, an hour for me, and then an hour for NBA Live before lock. But what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm pretty good, bro. Happy to be here, talk over this slate with you. Couple interesting cheap guys that are getting a ton of ownership, which I'm looking forward to getting your takes on.
This is a weird slate, a very, very, very weird slate, and it could get so much weirder. We have all this like Memphis value, and that could change dramatically if we get news that Triple J is out early enough, and all of a sudden it's like, well, you thought you had value, and now you have David Roddy. Like these are the things that could happen to us over the next 2 hours before we get to lock. I'm excited for it. We've got the 2 7 o'clock tip-offs, 7:30, 8:30, and then a nice little 2-hour break before we get to Raptors and Lakers. And the problem there is that we don't know who the 5th starter for the Raptors is going to be, and we might not know it until there's only one game remaining. And the answer to that question could be the key to the slate.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit beforehand. Excited to break it down even further when we get to that game. Only like 5 games, so kind of that medium spot where like the 5-game slates I feel like almost go the quickest because there's not so many games, but there's enough games where you don't have to go to like the dumpster diving, if you will, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it should be a fun slate. Are you ready to dive into this?
Let's get it.
The Sacramento Kings are 11-point favorites in Detroit, 240 total. Sacramento has everybody available that they normally have available. Trey Lyles is in. For the Pistons, no Cade Cunningham. He's going to be out for probably about 2 weeks, somewhere in that neighborhood. A little tweak of the knee. Still no Monty Morris. Still no Beef Stew. Not a ton of ownership coming into the Sacramento side. Just 7% to De'Aaron Fox. There are quite a few point guards on his corner today. 14% ownership coming into Domantas Sabonis. He is 10K flat. And then Kevin Huerter is actually the highest owned guy on the Kings right now. 4,400 shooting guard, small forward, 16% ownership, scattered amounts coming into everybody else. 26% ownership, by the way, coming into Huerter on the FanDuel side. What are you seeing here for Sacramento? Because obviously facing the Pistons, good matchup.
I think that Herder ownership is in part to the fact that he was like seen wearing a starter's jersey in practice. So presuming he starts over Chris Duarte here, if so, he looks like a really good value. I mean, great spot against Detroit. Should play regardless of how this game plays out. He looks really good here. He's one I'm willing to eat the ownership and play him in single entry, 3-entry max type stuff. He looks really good. I also like De'Aaron Fox. He's been in a little bit of a funk. I wrote about him in my contrarian article today. He's just not getting any ownership. So a point you like to make a lot, like there are other guys in his range. It's not like I think, oh, you have to take a huge stand on De'Aaron Fox. But if you have a otherwise chalky lineup, I think he looks good as a differentiator.
I completely agree. Like he's sort of in no man's land. You've got Jalen Brunson, $200 cheaper than him. As a very comparable play at the exact same spot. You could work your way down to an $8,800 Kyrie Irving if you need a different point guard, or all the way up to the top for Luka Doncic. So it's easy for Fox to sort of get lost in the shuffle, especially on a day where you have enough value to get to Luka. I don't have much Fox. I have the Brunson piece, but if I had the Fox piece and not the Brunson piece, it really wouldn't change much about the way that I'm looking at this slate. It just happens to be the way that it's breaking right now. I'm nervous about the Kevin Huerter minutes.
I get that, but how many do you think he need? How many does he need?
It's a good question. Over the past 30 days, he is scoring at a 0.78 fantasy point per minute clip. That's not ideal. That's certainly below his normal baselines. We saw him get 24 minutes this last time out, but that's kind of a deceiving 24 minutes. One, no Trey Lyles. Not that that's an immediate thing that helps Herder, but like it is one less body in their rotation that they can move people up and down the line. But two, this game was a blowout. They were up by a boatload. The Pels led by, as best I can tell, 50 at one point in time in the fourth quarter. Is that, let me just make sure that's real. That's what Popcorn Machine has. 112 to, yeah, 112 to 62 at one point in time in the fourth quarter. Kevin Herter played the entire fourth and like a minute and a half into the third quarter. If this is a competitive matchup, I'm not entirely sure that he's playing that many minutes and we're knocking him back down to like 18. But the consensus for today across the industry seems to be a little bit higher than that. And if that's causing ownership too, I'm a little nervous that he's not actually playing those minutes. In the games before this, 14 minutes on the fifth, 18 on the third, 12 and a half on the second, 17 on December 31st, 9.8 on December 29th. Is he just projected for too much playing time today?
Maybe, but I'll counter that ownership point with like a guy in his exact price range, Vince Williams, who's getting three times the ownership. I get it. He's projected for more points, but if you look at it like a Herder v. Vince Williams, then you're actually gaining a lot of ownership leverage. And 16% is not nothing, but like, I don't think he's going like severely over owned. Now, if he comes in like he's announced as the starter and he starts coming in like 30%, then I think it's a problem. That's just how I personally feel.
I think it's just a function of the slate. Like you mentioned Vince Williams getting sizable ownership. You've got Gary Trent at 4,400, who's basically the same play. Luke Kennard at 4,300, basically the same play. We've got these guys that are all like very, I mean, Killian Hayes, but that's sort of different because he's stepping into like a very likely stepping into a different role. We don't know the starting lineup yet, but I think that's the overwhelming assumption. Then you've got value even further down, like Zaire Williams or even Isaiah Livers at 3,700. So many of these guys are getting ownership that I don't think it's crazy to be getting to Kevin Herter. I'm just a little nervous that we saw those minutes jump, but it's not for the right reasons.
Yeah, I get that. And I think your point about Lyles is well taken. Like, just because they don't play the same position doesn't mean that Herter didn't gain a couple extra minutes because of that. Because, like you said, just to fill out their rotation, especially their second unit. So I'm with that. That being said, this game could get lopsided. Detroit sucks. I mean, I'm not going to predict that, but Herter playing a couple extra minutes here wouldn't be crazy.
No, not at all. That's the thing. Like, I wouldn't. They could just as easily end this Chris Duarte experience and get Kevin Herter playing more minutes. The only problem is just that he hasn't been all that good on the season, just a positive 0.4 offensive EPM. If he's not bringing you offense, he's not bringing you anything. Are we missing anything else for the rest of Sacramento? The Barnacle of the Bay, Kevin Herter, the returning Trey Lyles at 3,900, only pulling 4% ownership. Anything here?
He's always in play as a filler, but like not a guy I think worth like deep diving on, if you will. Sabonis is one of those always in play, not someone I'm building around.
Yeah, right now I have 14% Sabonis. So matching the field, 14% Kevin Herter. I did just take a minute off of him. I talked myself into reducing his playing time in my own projection. So I will probably have a little bit less Herter. I will make up for that with multiple other really shitty dudes that are playing on this slate that are in that same price range.
And I'll say this about like the 4,500-ish guys you mentioned. I think Hayes is different, like you talked about, because presumably starting point guard here, just a different role. And then as long as it's not the corpse of Thaddeus Young, if it's either Boucher or Porter, if Boucher's coming off the bench and it's Porter, give me Boucher over any of those guys.
Agreed. Completely agree. Then we get to the Pistons. No Cade Cunningham. Are you with the general assumption here that we're going to just get Killian Hayes stepping into that role?
Yeah, like 100. I would be really surprised if not.
63% owned on DraftKings at 4,500, point guard only. He's 6K on FanDuel today. So FanDuel, I guess, got Killian Hayes right, but I don't know how you get away from this if he's playing. Like, he's not the worst per minute guy in the world, although he's been worse recently, 0.76, but he's traditionally been in that 0.85, 0.9 range, probably stepping into somewhere around 28 minutes if he's named the starter. We don't have a lot of guys that are actually stepping into that kind of role on a day like today, particularly on a 5-gamer where you usually have a little bit less value to go around. So I think that ownership is completely justified.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. Like, whenever you see guys that get this high of ownership, they're just the best plays on the slate. I mean, NBA
Yes.
DFS is so projectable. Like, if you want to say, oh, Killian Hayes is going to be 70% in single entry stuff, so I'm just not going to play that. Okay. I mean, there's merit to that, but that's just not how I'm going to, not how I'm going to approach it.
What do you want to do here then with the rest of the Pistons? Bojan Bogdanovic is around 15% owned. Isaiah Livers is around 15% owned. Jalen Duren around 15% owned. Everybody else is getting 5 to 10. Burks, Asar Thompson, Jaden Ivey, Wiseman, Marcus Sasser, Kevin Knox to a degree. There's a lot going on for Detroit. Does anybody actually stand out to you?
No, they don't. I don't think they're not in play. I just can't sit here and say I like any of these guys over the other where they're priced. I feel like they're priced right, especially in the higher end of their team, like Bogdanovich 6,700 fair, Ivy 6,300. He's probably the wild card, Ivy. Like,
Yeah.
losing Cunningham is tough just because he's obviously their best player. Say what you will about like his long-term NBA prospects on how good he is compared to other guys, but he's clearly their best scorer, their best pretty much everything. So between Ivy and Sasser, I think there's upside in one of those guys here.
Sasser's the guy that I think is like the sneaky dude because we saw him get big chunks of minutes earlier this season. Point guard, shooting guard, 3,500. He's 10% owned. Like, is he all that? Like, the minutes are obviously more firm for someone like Isaiah Livers, but these guys are comparably owned. I think there's just so much more upside in Sasser than there is for Livers.
Yeah, same. I mean, and Detroit is like void of scoring already, shooting
Yeah.
everything. So they need someone like Sasser. And the other part about Sasser, which I love, he was like the cheap contrarian value guy I wrote about. He's coming in as the highest graded leverage play on the entire slate, like by far. Almost a 20% chance to be optimal, 10% ownership. Like, I don't even care what the guy's name is. I like playing that guy.
I've got neutral field ownership on Ivy. I'm a little under on Duren. I don't have nearly as much Boyan as I thought I was going to get because I do like this spot for him. Sacramento defense, 23rd in defensive rating. They play fast enough that this is actually a decent enough spot for the Pistons. But right now, I think it's just going to be Hayes, and then he'll have like a Detroit partner pretty regularly, but it'll be a random dude. It could be any one of these guys that are a general part of the rotation. But Sasser's the guy that I think is sneaky today.
Yeah,
I don't think they
same.
give a shit about Killian Hayes, like, or they don't have to give a shit about Killian Hayes all that much. Would it be all that surprising if Hayes played 24 minutes instead of like what seems to be a general consensus of 28 and Sasser got to 20 instead of 16 or something? I don't think that's crazy at all.
I don't either. So based on that statement, how do you feel about playing them together? Because before you said that, I had no problem with it.
Um,
But I do think that if Sasser sees like his ultimate upside in minutes, it comes at the expense of Hayes. I don't
yeah,
think Sasser needs like full upside of minutes though at 3,500 to be viable.
right. Yeah, 3,500 really opens him up to not needing a ton. We're talking about an allocating 8K to the two of them. You know, you're looking for, I don't know, 55 fantasy points between the two at 8K. That's doable. 25, like 30, 35 to Hayes, 20. Like at that point, you might just have a better value option than Sasser if you're getting once you get to 55.
If you try in for 55, which I think is like not crazy at 8K, but like on the very high end of what you would want, then I don't think you would want to play Sasser and Hayes together.
Agreed. Anything else for the Pistons?
No.
Alrighty. Schedule for the rest of the day. Very simple. We are getting very close to just all NBA talk on a day-to-day basis. The NFL is heading into playoff season. College football now over. Boo, Michigan. Boo.
Oh.
Yeah, it didn't go well for me in fantasy either. So NBA Live before lock at 6 p.m. That will take you all the way up until 7. The other thing I want you guys to do, click on that avatar link, stochastic.com/avatar. It's either going to be in the description or in chat. Load up our logo, use it on DraftKings, FanDuel, Owner's Box, Yahoo, because if you finish in the top 3 of a contest with 5,000 or more entries, you can get yourself 1 month of whatever you want at Stochastic. $200 value. Come in, use the Sims tool, get NBA projections and ownership, the boom bust, hop into premium Discord. You can see it on the screen, stochastic.com/avatar. All you have to do is tweet your result at StochasticHOF. We want to show you off. Give us a little help there. We reward you with $200 in value. Minnesota Timberwolves. 5-point favorites in Orlando, 217 total. This is the lowest total on today's slate. It is 23 points below the game we just talked about. Single-digit ownership on DraftKings coming into everyone for Minnesota. 19% to Jaden McDaniels on FanDuel, 18% to Mike Conley on FanDuel. I see the ownership as about right. I have 10% Naz Reid right now. So foul trouble, hopefully, for one of the 2 guys ahead of him. And then I have 12% of Anthony Edwards. This is not a great game environment. It's a highly ranked Orlando defense. It's an incredibly low total, even for Minnesota as the favorites in this game. So I'm okay not having a ton.
I don't think you need anything. I think the 2 guys that pique my interest are the two bigs from not Rudy Gobert, but Towns and Banchero. Towns is a price thing. He's still under 8K. It's not a good spot, but he also stands out from a leverage perspective in our tools. 14% chance of being optimal, under 10% ownership. I'll take that with Towns. Like, he's 7,700. He just got there in a matchup with Houston, similar spot here. Not like an ultimate, you have to lock him in, but a guy that's certainly in play for me. And then Banchero, like, I don't love the spot for him, but he's like 6th in our boom bust tool, and he's not getting ownership. He's getting 15%, 17% chance of being optimal. In limited lineups, I probably won't play him, but I think that being over the field on him in large field, if you're multi-entering, is pretty easy to do.
We've got a couple dudes on this Minnesota team. You mentioned the positive leverage. Like, Anthony Edwards has some positive leverage in the boom bust tool. Karl Anthony Towns has some positive leverage in the boom bust tool. I do like the idea of getting to those guys on the Minnesota side. And then when you bounce over to that Orlando side, you mentioned Paolo Banchero, 15% owned. It's single digits across the board to everybody else. Now, again, it's very different on FanDuel. 38% ownership coming into Chuma Okeke, 25 to Cole Anthony, still 12 to Jalen Suggs. But the only guy that I'm getting on the Orlando side is Paolo Banchero, 9K, power forward only, but a very different role for him with no Franz Wagner around.
Yeah, good call there. So a little bit more of a value on FanDuel where he's the same price. Yeah, we see this similarly. And yeah, Edwards really stands out from a leverage perspective, only behind Sasser there. So I'm with that call for sure.
Should we be paying attention to anything else from Orlando? Do you expect Caleb Houston to make 7 threes again today? Because he is not owned at all.
No, I wish he's been priced up. Like, since Franz got hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, he projects for 18 DraftKings points. Like, that's just not where I'm going to go.
I really don't have much. Like, I don't have any Caleb Houston. I did get to a little bit of Chuma Okeke. I don't wish that I did, but the fact that he has the MPE and Caleb Houston doesn't is just sort of opening him up to the public a little bit more. I wouldn't mind if I had Suggs. I thought that I was going to get a little Goga earlier today, but I ended up going a little bit closer on Goga's minutes and Mo Wagner's minutes. We have it at 26-22. Actually, we have it at like 26-23 if we're rounding up Mo Wagner. That's about where I'm at as well. So I ended up not getting to anything really here from Orlando other than Okeke and then just a standard amount of Paolo Banchero, which I will always feel good about getting Banchero.
Yeah, he's that guy right now. So why wouldn't you?
It's just a weird, it's a gross game. Because there's enough talent here. Like, I wouldn't be surprised in any way if Karl Anthony Towns just had like a monster day, but he's sub 10% owned. Gobert could
And I
have
don't
a
think it's
massive
wrong.
block day, 6% owned at 7,100. It's really hard to get to any sort of volume unless it's a Paolo Banchero who's clearly in a different spot than he normally is.
I think that this is definitely a spot where you can look at playing a stud or like one stud from each side, but you're definitely not looking at the filler pieces with just how they're priced.
No, you're not. No, you're not. I'm looking at the leverage numbers here. But solid positive leverage on Goga, 7% optimal, 4% ownership. It's not the worst flyer in the world to take.
No, Wagner too coming in with nice leverage. So
Yeah,
either one of
absolutely.
them.
And has the power forward eligibility, which certainly helps.
Mm-hmm.
This next game we're going to talk about probably in a little bit of a different way. That's going to be the Portland Trailblazers. 12-point dogs in New York, 229 total. Now, there's a lot to wait on for Portland, whether that's the doubtful tag on DeAndre Ayton, which you certainly don't expect him to suddenly be ruled in, but doubtful's not out. Q tag on Matisse Thybulle. Q tag on Jabari Walker. Now, I brought this one up on the strategy show this morning, and we'll bring it up again here for the people who didn't watch the strategy show. That Jabari Walker Q tag is massive for what we're getting today. Because of what we saw last time out with no Jabari Walker, we saw Dwop Reith play 41 minutes in overtime, 36 in regulation. They only went to Ibu Baji for 9 minutes. If Walker is out, how many minutes are you comfortable going to for someone like Dwop Reith? Because it seems like the answer is a lot.
It's a lot. I think it gets a little bit murky when you start to think about this game. And like you said, the 12-point spread, like who knows what they do in like a late game situation if they're getting rolled. But that aside, based on what we saw last game, the fact they won that game, they played well the entire game. They won in Brooklyn. I think you have to be comfortable giving him a lot of minutes here, as you put it.
Yeah.
I don't think you can go like the 36 he played before overtime or anything like that. But like, I don't know. What do you feel comfortable giving him?
I would probably get to like 30 or 32, I think.
I
Because
was gonna say
we
30,
haven't
but then
we
I
haven't
thought
seen
I
them
was too
want to
light.
play Baji or Moses Brown or anything more than like 16 minutes. Ish Wainwright's gone. I just don't trust his ability to stay out of foul trouble.
Yeah, I'm with that. And he's been productive too. Like he's priced up a bit,
Yeah.
but if he's gonna play the role he played last game, he's still way too cheap.
Yeah. I mean, he's been 1.15 fantasy points per minute in this past month. If you want to be like ultra pessimistic and call it a fantasy point per minute, 30 minutes at 5,500, like we're making way worse plays across the board than a guy that doesn't really have any center competition.
Yeah. And that's like I think 30 is the low end, honestly. Like just considering the circumstances of they actually won last game on the road. Like if Portland's competitive here, I don't see why he can't play 33 minutes again.
Yeah. I mean, I think they would like want him to play as many as he can without being in
Right.
foul trouble.
And I think that's the point. And like, yeah, he can clearly get into easy foul trouble here, but I think they want him on the floor, which is more than we could have said like a couple weeks ago.
What do we do with the rest of Portland? Like, if there's no Thibault, I think that trickle down effect really matters for the rest of Portland. We saw that last time. They did give 7 minutes to Chris Murray, but we ended up getting 28 and a half minutes in regulation of Tamani Kamara. Shaden Sharp played 40, 35 off the bench in regulation, including the final 18 minutes and 51 seconds of the game. There are a lot of minutes to go around for Portland if this injury news breaks in a weird way. Now, if we end up with Jabari Walker in and Matisse Thybulle in, maybe this just becomes a relatively uninteresting situation. Jabari Walker is already 5,200. He's power forward only, so I don't know if we're going to him off the bench. I have 8% Anthony Simons. He's the only guy in double digits across DraftKings and FanDuel. Do you like anything else from Portland?
Like, yes, but not love at all. Sharp is the one guy I'm really not sure what to do with. His minutes have been so all over the place. It's not a good spot. He's got GPP winning upside at 5,700. This kind of goes back to a point we talked about the last time I did a show with you. I think it was Mikal Bridges who was like at his price, at his floor. I
Yeah.
think you're seeing that in Sharp. Now his minutes are very volatile. So like in single entry, I have a real hard time clicking his name. But if I'm multi-entering, I definitely want some exposure here. Another guy, he doesn't have a high chance of being optimal, only at 4%, but he's coming in less than a percentage, less than 1% owned. So
Yeah.
yeah, in large field, maybe I'd get like 5% of him. I can't really say that there's anyone on Portland I want to plant my flag on here. It changes if Walker and Thibault are out, but it doesn't change like to the point where like I need anything, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think everybody's like, obviously if Walker and Thibault are out, you're able to bump up most of these guys with like an extra couple minutes. We're freeing up, 20-ish minutes of Thibault and another 20-ish minutes of Jabari Walker. Like that 40's got to go somewhere, and we start to have a little bit of value. But we also need to remember 229 total is the third or second lowest on the slate. Portland's 12-point underdogs. Their implied total is 108.5 right now. Not exactly a lot in comparison to the 120 on the opposite side for the Knicks. So it's not going to just immediately create the best spots in the world, but I wouldn't be surprised to see bigger minutes. I'm honestly a little surprised that we have Anthony Simons at 33.5. Given him playing 40 in regulation last time out with those guys out, maybe we see that bump up if we get Walker and Thibault out.
I'm definitely a Simons guy. I have a hard time allocating 7,700 for him here. Although, like you've seen, if Portland is competitive, he's like the 1A option of why they're competitive. I mean, he's their best player right now, certainly their best scorer. I think you could quibble on Jeremy Grant right now as their best player, but it's probably Simons.
Depends what you want, I guess.
Yeah, it depends what you want and need. They're completely different guys. I think Simon certainly has more upside, but for like a championship team wanting to win right now, Grant would obviously be more valuable.
Yeah, we're on the same page there. Abel, hit us with the super chat. Sims got Sasser and Hayes together. Do I change this? I wouldn't.
No.
I wouldn't. I mean, like, I wouldn't want to have, half of my lineups just have that combo over and over again, but I don't think it's a problem to have it in some lineups.
I'm completely with you guys when you say, like, if you trust your process, like, don't change stuff in it. Like, just,
yeah.
I mean, for a lack of a better term, shits and giggles. Like,
yeah,
there's just no reason.
No, agreed. Now, obviously, change that if we get news that neither one of those two guys are starting today. That would be a bit different. But using the assumption that Hayes is starting, and if Sasser is the one that's starting, I would also not want to play them together. I think you need the Hayes starting piece to feel the best about it.
If Sasser's starting, he becomes the best play on the slate, and Hayes becomes a GPP, no one's going to play him type play.
Yeah. Weird day. Weird day. About to get weirder. We got to talk about the Knicks. Knicks clearly in a very nice spot. Portland, not a very good basketball team. Play a little bit. They play at like an average pace, which is pace up for the Knicks. 25% ownership coming into Isaiah Hartenstein, who should just absolutely own the boards today. 15% ownership coming into Josh Hart. 23 to Julius Randle. Single digits across the board. I'm getting to two guys in double-digit ownership. That is Julius Randle. I am close to 2x the field. I'm a big believer in what he's going to be able to do today. And then I have 20% of Jalen Brunson. They are the two guys that I would want to get to. I'm very nervous, though, about the fade that I have on for Isaiah Hartenstein at this moment, because I think this matchup is amazing for him.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's amazing for all the Knicks. That's why they stand out here. We've talked about a couple teams where, like, they're not building around. I think you can certainly build around a couple of Knicks here. Now, they're expensive. So
yeah,
you're probably going to have to choose, like, within any given lineup, like, what Knicks studs you want. But when I talked earlier about De'Aaron Fox being in a group of other guards that look similar, Jalen Brunson's right there.
Yeah.
Fox is projected for a couple more DraftKings points, but I think Brunson looks really, really good here as well. So wouldn't fault anyone for playing Brunson over Fox. the Knicks just look good all the way around here, especially those main three guys, Randall and Brunson, obviously, and then Hartenstein, who with Mitchell and Sims out, like why would it ever need Sims to be out? But it does. He's just been playing really, really well. It fills a big need for them.
So what's interesting for me for the Knicks and why I'm pretty happy to be getting to Randall and Brunson, we've seen an increase. I know it's a small sample, but we've seen an increase in the usage for these guys with no RJ Barrett around now and now no Isaiah Quickly. Yeah, I did it again. Emmanuel Quickly. I don't know why I call him. I guess just because Isaiah Hartenstein's name is on the screen. It's just like sort of in my head. Because we've seen OG Anunoby come in and basically not use possessions. This is a guy that wanted to change teams because he wanted to be more involved in the offense. Well, he's probably a little upset right now. They may be 4-0, so maybe winning cures everything. OG Anunoby, in his 4 games with the Knicks, 13.6% usage rate.
Yeah, probably not what he was expecting or wanting. That said, they're winning. So I'm sure you're not going to hear him complain. And if they continue, like, I mean, the Knicks aren't a title threat, but I don't think there's any team in the East right now they couldn't beat except Boston. I think Milwaukee's better than them, but Milwaukee looks not right. Probably will get it fixed by the playoffs. But the Knicks are good. They don't have the most talent, but they're good. OG makes them a little bit better. But like you said, the no Barrett and no Quickly thing is big here. Like, these guys were already had big usage numbers. It's only gone up. So I like them both a lot here. The only counter I would make has nothing to do with them. It has to do with Paolo Banchero and Anthony Edwards and Anthony Davis, who's like a little bit more expensive, but there's a bunch of good plays in that range on this slate.
Yeah. Are you giving it a look to like Dante DiVincenzo, who's grabbing a little bit of love? Hart is getting some love. Anything for, like Precious Achua, if something happens to Isaiah Hartenstein? It's 3,500 power forward center eligible. Can you get to OG Anunoby if he's a 15% usage guy at this point? What else is there for the Knicks? Because the matchup works.
If there was a spot for OG to have a big game, it would be here. Like, they don't need their big guns probably to have success offensively, but I can't trust any of the other guys. I think Brunson and Randall are going to eat up so much usage, and then Hartenstein does a lot of everything else. So those are the main 3. The others are fine as fillers.
I don't have anything else here for the Knicks. I only have a little bit of DiVincenzo, a little bit of Josh Hart. I have a couple shares of Quentin Grimes, which I really, really hope goes away by the time the slate starts. Oddly enough, I think not a guy that I want to play.
I think I'd rather play Miles McBride at flat 3K over Grimes.
I had a little bit of him earlier today, but I took a minute away because it just made me nervous because he's Miles McBride. Grimes is a 0.79 fantasy points per minute over the past 30 days. He's on a bit of a heater for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that says all that needs to be said about that.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. All right, folks, we got to talk a little bit about BetMGM. I am a little sad that I cannot take advantage of this offer. That stinks. I'm not in a legal betting state. So if you're not in a legal betting state, I'm sorry this one doesn't hit you. If you are in North Carolina, though, cross your fingers. We should have this in 2 months. But anyway, here is the offer. Link in chat or in the description. Bet $5, get $158 in bonus bets. I know 158 sounds like a pretty ridiculous number. This is a BetMGM promo based on the Super Bowl. So Super Bowl 58, they tacked a 1 on there because nobody wants $58. So that's why we're getting a slightly different promo. All you have to do is wager at least $5 at standard odds. That will unlock your qualifying bet. You will then receive the $158 in bonus bets. If you're sports betting, you should be taking advantage of all of these offers. Hit up every book, get your bonus money, figure out which books you like the most, keep a bunch of them because shopping around for lines is going to be helpful, especially if you're a winning player and you inevitably get limited. But if you want to have your best opportunities, you want to be able to hit different books for different lines. The same way that you might want to hit different grocery stores for different prices. I was working my way to the word store, but I got there a little bit faster than I needed to. The legal age for gambling in most states is 21 or over. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. But before you do that, sign up at BetMGM. And now, the main event of the evening, the Memphis Grizzlies. 8-point underdogs in Dallas, 235 total. Unfortunately for us at this moment, we are still waiting on some news, and it is very relevant. Doubtful tag on Santi Aldama. Questionable tag on Jaren Jackson. And in case you've been living under a rock, Ja Morant is out for the rest of the season. This is creating massive ownership to Memphis. In fact, here it is. 19% to Bismack Biyombo. 25 to Desmond Bane. Call it 15 on Triple J. 25 to Kennard. 35 to Marcus Smart. 35 to Zaire Williams. And 48 to Vince Williams. Let's assume for right now that Jaren Jackson is in. Who do you see as the best play from Memphis?
I mean, it's the best play has got to be Bane, but he's also expensive and in that like Julius Randle tier. Kind of worried about Memphis just like dying here. They sucked so hard without Morant earlier in the year. Now, like the wind has been knocked out of them. No Morant. They're already teetering. I think that the addition of Marcus Smart probably helps that cause. He might be my favorite play at 6,300. I'm worried all these guys are over projected, but it's hard to get away from them just considering how projectable NBA DFS is. So no matter what my worries are, they all look like good plays if none of them are like you have to lock them in. The closest would be Bane to that, but actually I think the closest would be Smart at 6,300, getting 35% ownership, 30% chance of being optimal. I'm with that.
I think it's whoever starts at the 3. If it's because last game out we got Luke Kennard. He's 4,300 shooting guard, 25% owned. Excuse me. We've got Vince Williams at 4,300, who is probably option B. He's 4,300 small forward, 48% owned. Or you get Zaire Williams, 3,600 small forward, power forward. Whoever is the official starter out of that group sort of becomes a guy that just looks better than everybody else on paper because of their prices, because of their positionality. You just feel a little bit better about whoever that is and a little bit worse about their bench versions of those dudes.
Totally agree, but I hate that though. Cause like, what does feeling better really mean? Like these guys all suck. Coming off the bench could be better for them. Like we've seen in the past, like especially for the Williamses, Zaire and Vince, they've played better with Ja Morant a lot of their careers, especially Zaire. Vince has been better just at getting the like counting stats. So he's the guy I'd feel most comfortable with, presuming he's starting. I think he will. He's only 4,300. Before the show, I was like team Herder over team Vince Williams. I've changed that. Give me Vince Williams over Herder. I'm with you on the Herder minutes being somewhat suspicious, if you will.
I've got Vince Williams in for 28 minutes right now. He is in 84% of my lineups. That is the highest owned dude I have from Memphis, but I'm not letting, like, I've got everybody else. I'm over on Bismack Biyombo at 28%. I'm over on Bane. I've got 34. I'm neutral on Luke Kennard. I'm 2Xing or very close to 2Xing Marcus Smart. I have 66. And then I'm still over on Zaire Williams as well at 56. Only guy that I'm under on right now is Jaren Jackson. That actually does scare me a little bit, but the power forward center spot is very unique today. But I have one more piece that we'd like absolutely have to talk about. Bismack Biyombo is 4,200, 19% owned. Xavier Tillman is 3,900, unowned. I don't have a great feel about what they're going to do here. I don't trust anything. Tillman can start. He could not play at all. Everything is on the table. But if we get the news that Jaren Jackson isn't playing, I'm not really seeing a situation where Biyombo and Tillman don't split 48 full minutes at center, at which point I think that we need to have a conversation about Tillman. And I'm not sure how many people will get to him, even if he's coming off the bench.
I totally agree with that. I'm hoping Jaren Jackson's in because I want to play the Toronto guys over them. But if Jackson is out, then like both Biyombo and Tillman look better than the Toronto guys probably.
Well, we just fixed one of our issues from earlier. You know how we didn't know how many minutes Kevin Huerter was going to play?
Right.
He is now starting in place of Chris Duarte.
Okay. Well, what do you think about that as far as his minutes go?
I mean, I'm confident. Well, I feel like he's going to play more than the 18 that I got really nervous about at this point. If you like anything that he had before now for across the industry, it's not going down, and he was already getting owned. So probably 24, something like that. What has he averaged in his starts this year? Been a while since he started, obviously. Kevin Huerter has started. There is an answer to this question. 29 games this season. He has played 711 minutes. He has averaged 24 and a half minutes in his starts. So I don't know, 24 or 25. 24 seems about right. That takes him from, guy that makes you nervous to probably one of the better options that you can get to.
Do you think he's a better, worse, or the same play as Vince Williams?
I think if Vince Williams is starting, he's worse. If Vince Williams isn't starting, the fact that Huerter is shooting guard small forward and Vince Williams is just small forward, I think at that point in time, then it becomes like sort of more of an ownership game. They'll be pretty comparable plays.
Yeah, I'm with that.
Huh. Well, didn't see that one coming. So yeah, back to the Tillman Biyombo thing. Like if there's no Jaren Jackson, I think it really starts to matter. What are we doing here at center? I don't trust it. But, like 28-20 or something like that. 20 minutes of Tillman. Even if you go 30-18, 18 of Tillman off the bench, given some of the other value plays that are pulling 10 to 15% ownership, and then all you are is Bismack Biyombo foul trouble away from even more playing time, they don't have other guys that can play that position.
No, especially with Aldama out also. I mean, I'm with that. Tillman would all of a sudden look really, really good. And I'm also with you that I don't think, depending on when we get the news, his ownership will be where it should be.
Yeah, like if this comes in at 731 or 801, there will be something that, like if Jackson ends up out, we're going to get some under-owned Memphis value dudes that like aren't pulling it right now. Like
For
David
sure.
Roddy goes from unowned to very owned, 3K flat power forward. He will have to play like 20, 24 minutes. He's a terrible per minute dude, but even still, we've talked a lot about really bad value options. He will become one.
Easily.
Stephen Leibowitz made a good point. Against Dallas, if the Mavs are using Grant Williams at the 5, big body Roddy can play the 5 as well. I just don't think they would go to Roddy over Tillman, but I also didn't expect them to do all of the things they've done at center for the past 2 weeks. So I am not going to make any assumptions because that will make an ass out of just me.
I mean, honestly, with Aldama out, and if Jackson's out, Roddy will be in the mix. Like they'll all play. I mean, they don't have other guys besides Roddy, Tillman, and Biyombo.
No, and just in case people aren't aware of it, no Steven Adams, doubtful tag on Aldama, Brandon Clark out, Jacob Gilliard with the G League team, Morant out, Rose out. Like they are thin. They are very thin. Mm-hmm. Anybody on Memphis right now, assuming Jackson is in, that you're like not all that fond of?
Not really. I don't think there's anyone that I have to play in any one lineup, but certainly a team like I want exposure to. And there's no one that's getting ownership I think is like a bad play.
Yeah, I'm very happy to get to whatever Memphis I can. The reason I like getting to Memphis, 22nd in defensive rating, that is Dallas. I assume that's not helped by having to play more of like Dwight Powell at the 5. And then 14th in pace, they're not exactly slow either. So we can go to that Dallas side. Not a lot of love coming in here. Around 10% ownership to Derek Jones, around 10% ownership coming into Dwight Powell, around 15 for Kyrie Irving, and 20 to Luka Doncic. What do you get for Dallas in a very nice matchup against Memphis, and potentially an even better matchup if Jaren Jackson is out, because then this defense is going to be quite bad.
Yeah. The studs from Dallas obviously is where you start with them, and they look good here. Luka 11.5. I think that's a fair price point. 18% chance of being optimal, 22% ownership. I'm fine with that. If we start to get the Tillmans of the world, then I think Luka becomes that much more playable. And then Kyrie, I think he looks good here also. Coming in
Yeah.
with nice leverage. I think, playing him over Luca is definitely a way to play it. He's 3K cheaper. We've seen him take over games recently, so I can totally get on board with that. I think that playing one of those guys makes a lot of sense. I don't think you have to just because they're both priced appropriately, but no problems with either one of those guys. The other Dallas players, nothing stands out to me. How about you?
I have 50% of Luka Doncic, so that one stands out to me.
Sure.
With all of this value, I'm getting all the way to the top, and he should rip this Memphis team apart, especially if Triple J ends up out. I had a lot of Kyrie earlier today. I don't now. I think a lot of that just became Jalen Brunson. I don't have a single share of Derek Jones. I don't have a single share of Dwight Powell. I wouldn't mind getting there, but this is really just Luka or bust, or Luka or Kyrie, Luka and Kyrie or bust. I just don't happen to have Kyrie, but like I would not 1.57 fantasy points per minute for Kyrie in the past 30 days. I'll take him if I can get him. But I'm getting just an overwhelming amount of Luka Doncic, whereas earlier today it was AD. Now it's Luka.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I'll never argue with anyone playing Luca. He's
No,
clearly the
it's hard.
best fantasy basketball
Yeah.
player on this slate.
AD's given him a run for his money lately, but I agree with you.
I mean, our projections would say that Luca is the clear guy, and with all the value, I think it makes sense. Like,
Oh yeah,
I
raw
also,
points. It's Luka by a mile.
yeah, do think like you talk about guys that like could outscore Luca. There aren't many, and AD is one of them.
Absolutely. Yeah, there aren't too many other names that you can name that can get past that can be top scorer for today.
No, there really aren't.
Anything else for Dallas with one game to go?
No, the problem with their secondary pieces is they've been kind of priced up with Luca being out.
Yeah. Guys, 2,200 people in the door. We have 208 likes. That is not going to get it done. Can we go ahead and hit that thumbs up? Maybe we get up to like 300, 350. I feel like 350 should be in the card. So if you haven't hit that like button yet, please do so. Now we get to Toronto, who is sort of like Memphis in that we've got a giant question mark hanging in the balance, and we don't really know how it's going to shake out. We have news for Toronto. We have no Jakob Poeltl, and he's going to be out for about 2 weeks. But we don't know who is going to be the starting center for the Toronto Raptors. Or maybe more importantly, we don't know who the new starter is going to be. Could it be Gary Trent? Do they go back to Schroeder? Is it Jonte Porter? Is it Thad Young? Is it Chris Boucher? We don't really know. But the answer to that question is important. We just might not have it until there's only one game left on today's slate. So I'm going to open it up fully because there's 15% ownership to Boucher, 20 to Trent, 15 to Siakam, 10 to 15 on Scotty Barnes. There's love coming in. What do you like from Toronto? What are your assumptions right now?
So I am definitely, well, I don't want to say definitely. I'm of the assumption that Jonte Porter gets the start here. I told you I had a funny story, so little anecdote. I like to consider myself someone who is like with it. I'm not someone who's ever gotten scammed before in my life, except for one time, and it was by a fake Jonte Porter. So Jonte Porter is Michael Porter's brother.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what led to the circumstances, but years ago at this point, he was still like in college. I fell for like a fake Jonte Porter Twitter account that was like giving away an Xbox, cashed app an account like $15 or whatever they were asking. And my wife will never let me live this down. Like she will mention the name and she doesn't even know athletes, Jonte Porter. Like it's someone she's friends with.
So are you going to play him today to try and get your money back?
Yes, I am. He's been the guy off the bench.
Yeah.
He's been the first big man off the bench for Polo recently. Like it would make logical sense that he's the guy that starts. I mean, I don't know how many minutes he's going to play. He's only 3,100. He's a center. Like, I'm with it. I almost prefer that because I still think Boucher gets big minutes here, and he looks like one of, if not the best player on the slate to me.
If he can be. Like I gave him 22 minutes. I have 40% of him. So we are on the same page. But like if Gary Trent is named the starter, then it starts to get really dicey of who is that first guy that comes in in that rotation to try
Right.
like to come in and become then the backup center. That's where I start to get nervous. And that complicates matters. Like I want it to be a center and not Trent because then that at least takes some of the ambiguity out of Toronto.
If it's Trent and it comes out later, I'm fucked. I mean, I'll just put it like that. Like I'm playing this slate out like it's not like it's either Porter or Boucher. My ultimate dream scenario is that it's Porter. And I don't think Porter's going to play massive minutes. So if it's Porter, I think Boucher is the guy that comes off the bench and they both get there. If it's anyone else, I'm not sure you can play either of them. Like you can take flyers on them, hoping they're the
Yeah.
first guy off the bench. One of them will be, but you can't trust either of them. So I'm with you. Like this is probably the most important news on the slate. I wonder how many people are gonna or how many people won't like build around that news.
Probably a lot. So
Right.
here's a question. Anthony Davis, generally speaking, plays the entire first quarter. For the past 8 games, he has played the entire first quarter. Does that change the way that you think Toronto approaches who the starter is?
I mean, kind of like they can't just put Siakam on an island on AD. Like they just can't do that. I mean, if starting none of these guys are going to be able to contain AD. So like it doesn't even
No.
matter. Like I don't even know if it matters at all. I mean,
It's part
I
of the
really
reason
don't.
that I think they might start Thad Young.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that earlier. If they start that young, it's the same for me as them starting Trent. Like I don't know what the hell to do then. I mean, he hasn't even been in the rotation. You mentioned it earlier with like the Jericho Sims thing. It's so apropos here. Like a guy who
Yeah.
hasn't played in weeks, all of a sudden going to start just because you need the size. I don't think that's going to happen because, like, why wouldn't they just be playing Thad Young over Jonte Porter right now? But trying to get in the head of these NBA coaches is a fool's errand.
It is. It is indeed. I feel like if you put Jonte Porter out there to start this game, he's got 2 fouls immediately. Like
Hmm.
he's AD's just fouling him up, and we're getting to the next guy pretty quickly.
Even if Jonte Porter starts, I don't project him for massive minutes, a massive game. He just looks intriguing to me at 3,100 as a center who can rack up DFS points when he's out there. He hasn't played big minutes, but he's produced a decent amount when he's been out there.
3,100 though for Jonte Porter. Like, let's say he is the starter. How good of a play is he?
We kind of just talked about it. I think he probably will appear to be a better play on paper than he actually will be, just because, first off, we don't know how many minutes they want him to play, anyways. Second of all, easy foul trouble here. Like, probably the biggest concern, foul trouble concern of the night. All that said, we don't get $3,100 starting centers ever. So I'll
No.
play him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I will certainly have some because if you can get up to 18, 20 minutes, something like that on Porter, with certainly a ceiling to go more, that's going to start looking really good as a per minute option. What do you want to do with the rest of these guys, though? Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, Pascal Siakam is 8K power forward center eligible. You've got Gary Trent with a very interesting price tag and positionality in a situation where he may be stepping into bigger minutes.
Man, RJ Barrett coming off like the best game of his career. I
Yeah.
almost was like, that is the signal of the end of the Warriors dynasty, them allowing RJ Barrett to go for like 46-6 on them. That is just a wow.
That was a
Even in
big day.
NBA, crazy stuff happens. No one else on Toronto like stands out to me because the loss of Podol doesn't really affect usage. It just makes for minutes and those big guys become in play. But I don't mind Siakam, Barnes, Quickly, who I'm a big fan of, Trent at
Yeah.
his price. I don't think any of them are bad plays. And I do think the more of them you have, the more opportunity you have to like switch off for later news. So that's a benefit.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The more you have of Toronto, the easier it'll be to get off of whatever mistake you made if you get the starting lineup wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It won't help as much on the late. Like I don't think there's a lot going on the Lakers side other than LeBron and AD, and you're probably not like really excited to be swapping off of those guys at that point just to make your shit work if you got the first mistake wrong. But like you're not dropping off of AD to be like, oh, well, I got the $3,100 Jonte Porter now. It's like, well, yeah, but you're also giving up $7,000.
It's not the
uh,
perfect storm, but like at
no.
least you have more options the more Toronto you play. That said, I would at least try. It's hard to even plan out because we just don't know what Toronto's going to do.
We do not. Yeah, like my prayer is that I have Boucher in the utility spot and I go big and then it's not him and I can just hot swap him to Gary Trent immediately. That is the easiest way to do it. But if you're locking in Trent to like, or Boucher into that forward spot, then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, I don't know what else I can do here.
With you, I'm kind of like,
Oh,
you said that if you have the Toronto guys, there's not much you can do on the Lakers side. I think it's more the other way for me. Like if I'm playing Boucher and AD, then if somehow like Boucher is not in the starting lineup, I can go down to like Siakam and whoever it is.
yeah, that's a good point. I like that. Let's finish this off with the Lakers then. 28% ownership coming into Anthony Davis, 19 to LeBron James. LeBron is questionable, by the way. They're the only two guys getting any real love. I kind of flip-flop their ownership. So instead of AD being 28% owned, I have 28% LeBron. I have 16% AD. So a little bit under now on AD, a little bit over on LeBron, but it's those two or bust as far as I'm concerned for the Lakers.
Yeah, same. They look great, both of them. Both of them 2-3 in our boom bust tool, only behind Luca. Optimal percentage for AD, 26% ownership. LeBron coming in with a tiny bit of leverage, 22% there, 20% ownership. Like, I love both these guys. AD should smash here. Like, one thing I will say that I kind of like, it's hard for projections, and we've talked about how projectable NBA is, to factor in like the total absence of like a full game and how it will affect AD, especially his first game. Like it definitely gives a bump to AD. I don't know how
Yeah.
much. I'm not changing the numbers or anything, but this certainly seems like a ceiling AD spot.
When I had 70% of him this morning, I was hoping that it would be a ceiling AD spot. Now I hope it is a pedestrian AD spot, I guess.
Well, I think you more just hope for like Luca to, like if AD goes for 60, you need 65, you need Luca to go for like 80, which can easily happen.
Easily.
I don't want to say, yeah, that might be, well, I feel like 80. Yeah. I mean, I
I
personally
just need
just
LeBron
looking
to
at
beat
it,
AD. That's my issue. I need LeBron to beat
yeah,
AD.
we've seen that happen a bunch.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything,
Yeah.
I mean,
He's a tenth of a point behind him lately, 1.5 to AD over the past 30 days, 1.4 to LeBron. I just need LeBron to beat AD. That's push comes to shove. That's what I need.
I think you could play them both.
So do I. So do
It's a
I.
pricing thing. They're both like on, they're very much like cheaper end of where they're usually priced.
It's a 5 game slate. If Luca doesn't go crazy, like there's no reason that they just don't monopolize everything that happens for the Lakers today. And, are both ADs at, 35 and 15. LeBron's got some sort of high assist triple double. You could see
Right.
that path very easily. I
Yeah, for
like
sure.
this slate. The value is a pain in the ass, and it's going to be so irritating by the time we get to like 9 o'clock and the idiots that are the keys to the slate. But I like opening up a little bit more and being able to get to some stars. Anything else you want to add before we kick this one over to live
No,
before lock?
I think you made the good point though. The value, like there aren't guys that you're like, okay, we feel comfortable with this guy, but there's enough of them where it puts a guy like Luca, especially if you're multi-entering, like really, really in play.
NBA live before lock coming up next, guys. Thank you for being here. Make sure you hit that like button one last time. You don't have to change the stream up to 370. So thank you guys for listening to me. Don't go anywhere. Stay on this stream. NBA live before lock coming up next.
What is up, guys? It is Tuesday. It is time for NBA Live Before Lock, which means what? It means that all my lineups were just finished being built, run through the sims, and then Jabari Walker gets rolled out, and now everything that I just built is totally inconsequential because I don't have to redo everything right now to make up for the fact that I had built lineups assuming that Jabari Walker is in. But don't worry, guys. We're going to be walking you through everything you need to know about the slate, answering any questions you have, and in addition, we've got a really, really good bonus offer for you tonight. We are sponsored by BetMGM. And if you guys sign up at BetMGM using the link that we have below, here's the easiest money you guys are going to make, maybe even ever. You make a deposit, you bet $5 on BetMGM, just $5, and they're going to give you $158 in bonus bets. 158 kind of seems like an odd number. Eric, do you know why the number is 158? Are you smart enough to figure this out?
I didn't even think about Super Bowl 58. There it is.
There it is. Eric, the big problem solver. He has figured out in honor of Super Bowl 58. You sign up at MGM, use the link we have below, bet $5. You're going to get $158 in bonus bets. So take advantage of this offer. It's only going to be here through the NFL playoffs, and it's just really easy money to make. If you or anybody you know has a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER. Eric Lindquist, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing all right. Ready to rock. Obviously, that's some major news because Duop Reith played infinity minutes the other night. So they have Moses Brown out with the wrist surgery. They have Jabari Walker out, who would have played backup 5 and could have gotten extended minutes. But now you've shored up his minutes in one of the more difficult spots. Obviously, there's massive blowout potential. You're going up against Isaiah Hartenstein here on the other side, who's one of the best defensive centers so far in the league. Number 1 in defensive rating now. Well, no, it's still Rudy Gobert. Number 2, Isaiah Hartenstein and Goga Bitadze. I mean, that is a wild top 3 that we're looking at there. But obviously, this is going to change my center position over on DraftKings quite a bit.
Yeah, and for people in the chat, we're just like, come on, we have to text the number immediately. So there's different things. Does everybody who plays DFS has a gambling problem? According to W German in the YouTube chat, no, I've got a solution. This is what bought my house. It's what pays my bills. So it's different for different people. You know, you never know. There's different, like this is one of the only addictions you could have where you wake up with like a new house, right? There's no point in time where it's like, oh my God, I'm a meth addict. What happened? New car yesterday. There's no scenario where that happens, but you could reasonably be a gambling addict and you wake up because of your addiction with a new car or a new house the next day. So it is something to consider when you call or text that number. Tiers, we got a super chat.
Good start.
We've got, it's a very strong start. We've got a super chat here. By the way, last show, Jordan, did they answer the super chats that are up here? Okay, good reading. What about the one from Abel? You got that one? Okay. So here we go. Chase Harrow wants to know, Josh, let's go back at the end of the show. Give me time for an owner's box gold nugget. So for all intents and purposes, Eric, I want you to do your best Josh impression and answer this question. Do you have an owner's box gold nugget?
Here's the thing you need to know, guys, is that sometimes chat, you're not paying attention to the news, okay? Here's the thing, is in my model, as I look at everything that we have over at Owner's Box today, which you want to be signed up on, you want to be signed up in multiple spots. I'm here in North Carolina. We don't necessarily have legalized gambling, but we have an opportunity to get you some great stuff at Owner's Box. So that'll be a gold nugget star towards one Luka Doncic. Seems like he might put up some fantasy points tonight, don't you think?
I thought that was Josh for a second. I couldn't tell the difference. You guys look alike. Everything was the same. I did notice no difference. If I closed my eyes, I would have thought that Josh was right here doing the show with me. So as far as Owner's Box goes, I'm going to give out my gold nugget play is going to be Killian Hayes, who I do expect to play a bunch of minutes. He should be seeing an uptick in usage as well as the playing time in the absence of Cade Cunningham, who is hurt. And so Cade Cunningham not playing today. Killian Hayes is the player who I do expect to be benefiting the most. So Killian Hayes, a really strong play across DraftKings FanDuel and Owner's Box. That is the way that I think you should be going when you're building some of your lineups there, Chase. So you got a pay up option in Luka and a pay down option in Killian Hayes. Now, Ace of Spade is asking us about DK tiers. So let's go ahead and look at some of the tiers for tonight. And do you have lineups built out for this, Eric? If not, I could just...
I do already. Yes, I already have them.
Okay.
But go ahead and rattle if you want to, but I can pull them up here. I just built lineups.
All right. Rattle. Tier 1 is going to be Luka, Tier 2, I'm going to go with your guy, Paulo Banchero. I know you've said a lot of positive things online about Paulo Banchero.
I mean, here's the thing. In Minnesota, I'm on 4.5 today. 5.5 is where it's moved to across the industry now. He's been out of control good. I expect the usage to still be there. I'm expecting I'm still going to get to a little bit DFS-wise, but got to say, this is a little bit more apprehensive than I'm feeling about Banchero without Franz Wagner here because he's playing an actual team on the other side.
Okay. I'm going with Banchero, though, in tier 2. Tier 3 for me, that is Dr. J, Julius Randle. Tier 4, that is going to be Jaren Jackson Jr. as of now. Now, he's questionable to play. So there's a lot of moving parts here with the Memphis Grizzlies. John Moran out for the season. We've got Triple J questionable for today. So as of now, I'm going to go with Triple J. If he is out, then I'll go with Karl Anthony Towns. Tier 5, Jalen Duren. That's a pretty easy one. And then tier 6, Isaiah Hartenstein, who's been playing bigger minutes for the Knicks as of late and really has been a strong fantasy producer. So Ace of Spade, thank you very much for the super chat. Next one is from Derek K, who Derek was messaging me on Twitter last night. So I know that he had a big hit. Took down 100K last night and truly would not have done it without us too. Can you believe that, Eric? Just a couple days ago, you were butt-ass naked in a Bass Pro Shop, swimming in the pool there, and now all of a sudden you are helping people win $100,000 in a single night. How does that make you feel? You've really turned your life around quick. Derek, once again, congrats. Thank you for the shout out.
Congrats, Derek. We appreciate you, my guy. We appreciate you.
As always, thank you for the super chat. And also, I really did enjoy seeing your message in my DMs over on Twitter.
Love it, dude.
Brandon Wagner saying, let's fucking go, boys. Win more than you lose, and it's not a problem. Ship it season 2024. It's the year of the GPP wins. How many millions are you going to win this year? How many millions?
I would like one. I mean, here's the thing. I think, do we have the same number of 100K wins now or not? You have 2, I have 2, right?
I've only won 100K.
Oh.
I've never won a milli.
2019 was a good year. It was a good year. It's been a while. Here's the thing. You have the most recent one. I've never won a milli. Hang on. That's not true. I have tied Showdown with 194 of my favorite friends in America on a Showdown for a milli.
Okay. So Eric's, if you want to claim that as a Showdown win, then okay. Did you put that in your Twitter bio, by the way?
Milli Maker winner with $7,000 or something?
Yeah. $7,000 Milli Maker winner.
Oh, man. But here's the thing, though. You crushed DraftKings Rainmakers. I was going through my results from that, and they are not nearly as good as I thought they were at the end of last season. I might have gotten ran over by a train in December. That definitely happened.
Can you imagine how much better the shows would be?
All right, we're going there. We're going toward. Hang on.
There's a funny
January 9th.
2024.
2024. Have to remember the change.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's funny ways that could have been incorporated. That statement could have really been incorporated into the Bass Pro Shop bit in fun ways, and I didn't go there. I could have, but I didn't.
Way to show restraint, Craig. It's about time, bro.
That's why I didn't even think about making the joke. Never brought it over once. Never brought it up once. Never even.
So this slate, let's get into it. It sounds fun.
Yeah, we've got super chats to answer and questions.
Okay, we can do that.
Here. Let's see what we have in the Discord channel as well, and then we can start looking at some of the updates here. First, Gangrene wants to know, what do we expect from Duop Reith? And he wants to know, should we be playing him in DK single entry? So Jabari Walker is not going to be playing today. That is a piece of news that broke a little bit before the show. What are we going to be doing with Duop Reith tonight, Eric?
We're going to be rostering him. I don't know how much here because I'm cleaning up my stuff. There's only 5 games, so it's not nearly as labor intensive as it otherwise might be, but it's going to probably radically change my lineups more than most pieces of news because it is only 5 games. And, that's one lineup spot that you want to be pretty sensitive to where ownership ends up landing in our projections. They're really, really accurate as you get right up to lock there, and you want to be paying attention to it because Duop Reith is a guy at the center position who could play a boatload of minutes, but there are other guys that I do want to be playing here on today's slate at center. You brought up Isaiah Hartenstein already, 6,400. He's popular with good reason. He gets this matchup where it's all of one dude on the other side who likes to sit out on the perimeter and shoot threes. And, that's Duop Reith is not your traditional center. And therefore, Hartenstein, when he goes down and does his dirty work and gets 48 rebounds like he'll probably get tonight. 6,400 is a little bit too cheap for him, but I fully expect Duop Reith to be over 25% here very, very shortly. And I expect that I'm going to be getting to him considering the price point is too good.
So we did just get an ownership update. He is projected for 21% ownership. One thing that I do definitely think impacts this, though, is the other slates where Reith was popular. He was like 3,800, 4,500. He's 5,500 now. It's a little bit more of a price tag to pay for Duop Reith. So is he somebody to roster? For sure. I'm going to be interested to see what my lineups look like when I run everything through our sims here. But him being 5,500 as opposed to those cheaper price points definitely makes a difference. And we haven't projected to play sub 30 minutes, which it's hard to expect him to play north of 30 in this spot. Let's see. What did his minutes look like in recent starts? Duop Reith. Let's pull this up here. All right. So Reith starts as of late, Eric. We have seen him.
Well, I mean, he had overtime last game, so it's going to inflate it. I believe it was 41 minutes.
41 in that game. The game before he started and played 27 minutes. So that was a blowout. His other starts this year were 26 minutes, 21 minutes, 22 minutes, 20 minutes. So there's a lot of different kind of things we've seen here. And also the fact that the Blazers get blown out in a bunch of their games, which also kind of makes it hard to parse. Yeah, go ahead.
But my thing is that it's him or Baji. There's nobody else to play at center now. Like Jeremy Grant would be small ball 5. You can't play Tamani Kamara at the 5. Chris Murray makes no sense at the 5. Like, my thing is that it's just like, even in a blowout, barring foul trouble, it's going to have 48 minutes of Duop Reith and Baji. And there's still a chance that Reith, when they're down 20, they have him out there just because, well, we might as well just develop him and play him. He's a 1.05 fantasy point per minute guy as opposed to Baji, who's been, 0.68? I know it's a very limited sample size, all of less than 100 minutes or something. But I still feel as though, the run out is still pretty good for him, barring foul trouble. And it's not like Hartenstein on the other side is going to be some high usage guy. So I think this is kind of a spot where I'm going to find myself over the field.
See what else we have as far as the super chats here. And we got somebody asking, the people demand to know where is Ship's whereabouts. So talking about Adam, he's at a strip club right now in the finest area of Baltimore, which, by the way, people don't know this. The best strip club in Baltimore, the way that they rate strip clubs, it's based on the percentage of strippers there that have stab wounds. So he's at the one that's all the way down at only 60%. It's the best strip club in the city. But you're really not helping me today.
No, I mean, you say things and you are very invigorated by such things. I mean, it's just like Adam is out there letting it rip. And, should we, I just want to check in on my guy.
Listen, you got to give the whereabouts sometimes. James Magruder, best play at each position and cheap value options. Yeah, so I do have to rerun my lineups for the Duop Reith news. But with that said, this is before I know what my actual ownership is going to be, but based on our ownerships and our projections, I'll make some best educated guesses on the players I like the most at each position. Let's start with point guard, Eric. Which point guard do you believe you're going to ultimately end up with the most exposure to?
Killian Hayes.
I believe that is going to be the same for myself as well. Killian Hayes, who he's very cheap, $4,500 over on DraftKings. And then also, I mean, there's no Cade Cunningham. Even in do you think that it's likely that we see Hayes get blowout run if the game ends up being one-sided?
So, I mean, we just assume that he's starting, and then I do think they could do some stupid stuff like Ivy, Sasser. They could do something to really screw with it. There's no hard and fast rule of how Mr. Williams is going to be handling his basketball team. So far, Monty Williams not handling his basketball team pretty well. So could be Alec Burks out there for a while. Could be Oscar Thompson, who's been kind of falling on hard times when it comes to minutes. But I would assume Killian Hayes is more than viable for a blowout run. But I mean, for me, it just comes down to as long as he's starting, the guy's 4,500. He's a 0.85 fantasy point per minute guy. I'm going to project him for 28 to 30 minutes. Like that's kind of automatic.
Let's see what we have at shooting guard. So for me at shooting guard, I assume I'm going to be getting to the most of, I'm going to say Marcus Smart here, and then I'll throw Desmond Bane in at small forward. Just the absence of Ja Morant. There's so much usage and playing time to go around there in Memphis. So Marcus Smart at shooting guard, Desmond Bane at small forward. They both have shooting guard eligibility.
Yeah, it's going to be Marcus Smart for me. And then, yeah, Desmond Bane's one of those pieces of chalk here. Vince Williams, actually, I have a little bit more of than Desmond Bane at the moment, but that is definitely viable to change here with the Duop Reith update.
And then if we go ahead and look at power forward, I think that's going to ultimately end up being Anthony Davis for me.
Yeah, it's probably going to be for me too. I think the Zaire Williams thing is really hard for me to get a grasp on. He's played well the last couple games, has closed out some of these spots. I don't know what to make of some of these minutes, 18, 20, 27. I think it could be like a hot hand approach where if he's coming out, knocking down corner threes, he kind of just sits in the corner a lot of those games if you're watching Memphis, which, again, it's going to be a little bit more arduous without John Morant out there. But Zaire Williams, he is capable, but there's times that he'll disappear and then get pulled off the floor and they'll close somebody else. So I think you could look at anywhere. I think on the low end, 21 minutes. I don't think he's going to get anything lower than that. I think that's pretty much where we have him projected at, but there's an upside to the minutes. I just don't know if he's the piece of chalk I want to eat from Memphis at 3,600.
And then at center, maybe it's Hardenstein. It's probably going to be Hardenstein for me. Maybe
yeah,
Chris.
It's definitely going to be Hartenstein and Reith, and they look pretty similar here in my first run of this. I'm gonna update it again here. I'm playing 40 lineups, my typical 40. So, we shall see. We shall see.
All right, now let's go ahead and look at the FanDuel side of things because we got a similar question for us from FanDuel, where we got a super chat from Showcase, who wants to know, what are the best value plays over on FanDuel today? Yeah, so best overall value plays on FanDuel. I'm going to say Chuma Okeke is one of them. FanDuel, by the way, has done a much better job of pricing up some of these.
They have. How about 6K Killian Hayes right out the get-go? I'm writing an article over at Stochastic if you guys want to check that out here. I'm starting to break it down as I have more time post-football to be able to devote to some writing. So broke down a little bit of both, and nice to see FanDuel coming in hot with some upgraded pricing before DraftKings even did.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Chuma Okeke, and Chris Boucher is somebody who I think has a pretty good amount of upside, considering that Jakob Poeltl is going to be out today. So the pricing is really tight over on FanDuel. I'm going to go Boucher and Okeke. Anybody that you would add to the FanDuel side of things?
No, I don't want to ruin Nuke of the Night. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Everything.
You've done shows with me for enough years now where you know where I'm going with Nuke of the Night tonight.
You got to preserve everything so that you could get your exotic friend pushed into the Nuke of the Night. It's great because you could use him in any given night as the lotion play, the Nuke of the Night, the exotic play.
That's not who I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not talking Bojan. It's not going to be Bojan. It's not Bojan tonight. Yeah.
Okay.
Spoiler. Riddle me this. Riddle me this.
What?
Nothing. No, I'm just saying.
Isn't there like a riddle after you say riddle?
There's no riddle. I'm a riddle as a person.
That's fair. That's fair. But typically the way the riddle me this Batman, it's, Jim Carrey was the Riddler, and then there's some sort of riddle involved.
Want to see this pencil disappear? Ta-da!
That was more of the Joker and just total nonsense. That was not the Riddler. That was not any kind of riddle, but all right.
Oh, so we Riddler, different character. I did Joker, sorry.
Not Bojan. And then Zachary Pinella is asking us, is Marcus Smart good chalk today? I believe Marcus Smart is good chalk.
Marcus Smart is good chalk.
Let's go ahead into our Discord and see what kind of questions that we're getting in here. And in Discord, we have a question here from Captain Akella, wants to know who's somebody that we like in a single entry, maybe a little bit more so than a large field tournament. And you know what? I think this is a pretty good way to lead into Nuke of the Night. I know it's 6 minutes before the midway point of the show, but Jordan, hit the animation. It's time to talk about the Nuke of the Night. It gets better every time I say it.
It's pretty sick, Chubbs.
Ooh, blown to pieces. Eric Lindquist, you've been leading people on. You said you got a riddle. Who is it? Who is the Nuke of the Night? Who is it that you've been alluding to?
Tonight's Nuke of the Night is one Christopher Boucher of the Toronto Raptors. There is no way that I am not going to be overweight to the field here. And there's a couple of reasons why. First off, Chris Boucher's been with this team for a long time. Obviously, this is a different coaching situation for him, going from, once upon a time now, Nick Nurse up there. So you have an opportunity, or not Nick Nurse, but you know what I'm saying. He's gone. And now you have a new opportunity here, friends, for Chris Boucher to have these minutes played around with ad nauseum. But there are some interesting things that you're able to do in the late night hammer here with the starting situation for whoever that fifth starter ends up being for Toronto. But regardless of who it is, Chris Boucher is 4,500. If they go to Jonte Parker, 3,100, disaster. But you know what? You can make that $1,400 work. It's why I'm overweight to LeBron and Anthony Davis right now. I will find ways to maneuver around salary in my lineups. Thaddeus Young, 3K. I heard on the tail end of that last show that that's somebody that Josh was taking a look at as a potential starter. I really, really hope not. But if they don't go small ball Pascal Siakam at the 5, Chris Boucher, he's 6'9", 200. He's going to be a pencil next to LeBron, next to one Anthony Davis. But 4,500 for a guy who is a 1 fantasy point per minute player here over the course of the season. 1.05 over on DK is what I had as the baseline here. And then 1.07 for his career. His defense has definitely declined. Now he's going to be playing next to some more ball-dominant guys. Gary Trent probably going to have to get a nice allocation of minutes. Emmanuel quickly, RJ Barrett, and not even to mention Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam. But you need offense. You need a little something there to spark some upside at 4,500 and less than 20% ownership on a 5-gamer. Chris Boucher has been that guy forever, and he can do it in 20 minutes. So he ends up playing 28 minutes, 31 fantasy points against Sacramento, 16 against Golden State. Ends up being a blowout. They don't even need him to go finish out that one. He's 4,500. People aren't playing him. I am Nuke of the Night.
I like it. I like Chris Boucher. And being honest with you, he was one of the 2 people that I wanted to bring up. I just said he's one of the top value plays that I like on FanDuel. For me, I do also really like Chris Boucher. So I'll pivot a little bit because I was thinking about him. Kevin Huerter. I'm kind of surprised that nobody wants to roster Kevin Huerter today. We found out earlier today that they were considering starting him. Then we got word officially that Kevin Huerter is going to be moving into the starting lineup for the Kings. I don't know exactly what his minutes are going to look like, but he's very cheap on DraftKings and FanDuel. And I know there's potential for him to play bigger minutes. He isn't having the best year this season, but we've seen him as a fantasy asset in the past. And this is a very cheap price point for Kevin Huerter. So if we're looking for somebody who's going to be starting, who should be playing more minutes and is going to have opportunity the field isn't going to be playing, give me Kevin Huerter. And I do think that in a lot of ways, it is kind of similar to what you're liking Chris Boucher. I would view Boucher as having much more upside, whereas Kevin Huerter is somebody who does have some upside, but is maybe a little bit safer as well with having minimal ownership.
Yep, I'm with you. I like Kevin Huerter. I'm getting just barely over the field here. I think what's happening is, with Reith in the mid-range 5,500, with the amount of Boucher that I have, I'm well north of the field on 17% Boucher. I think there is a very good chance that he ends up getting the start here. I would say if I had to just pick out of a hat the form, like there's 4 different iterations, I guess, of what Toronto can do for the starting lineup. I lean them towards going Boucher here in the starting lineup based on how he's played the last couple games. And then they can ride the hot hand from there. If he ends up not playing well, there is what it is, but he's going to avoid some of those starters in terms of usage. Doesn't help to have Gary Trent be the guy coming off the bench whose job is to score the basketball, but you need some size of some sort out there. And, there's not enough of a sample size on some of these other guys. I mean, Thad Young has been a good fantasy producer once upon a time. Don't know if I would trust the minutes here. Jonte Porter's played all 14 NBA games. Chris Boucher, love. Kevin Huerter, not love, but definitely somebody that I'm going to be overweight with you.
We've got a question in our Discord channel from Einstein. He wants to know, are you giving guys like David Roddy or Xavier Tillman boosts in light of the Triple J news? How are you going to handle Jaren Jackson Jr. being questionable in this situation with the Memphis Grizzlies, Eric?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that I think I want to get to in the event that he gets ruled out. Obviously, Desmond Bane he's already one of the best plays on the slate. We talked about him when we were going position by position. He's just a slam dunk as it is without John Morant out there for the season. His price is going to be 9,500 really, really quickly. I think that he played very poorly for the first month or so of the season, and that tag was on the increase, if you will, really, really quick. Gets Marcus Smart back, so maybe that'll mitigate it a little bit, maybe more of like a 9K guy the rest of the way. But if he ends up out, Desmond Bane, I'm going to try to just have everywhere. I think the trickle-down effect at center, Bismack Biyombo, 4,400, you'd have to be looking at maybe more minutes there. I mean, he's a guy that I'm not in love with because his ownership is basically double that of his. He's got the highest leverage, negative leverage score. Him, Luke Kennard in the boom bust tool here right now. And so I think that's a little bit problematic. I mean, do we want to go to Tillman here and just kind of play it down the middle? I think I'm probably just going to end up playing whoever starts there. Can't imagine that I want to go too nuts there, but who do you think that other guy, like, do we need to start considering Roddy or some of these other guys?
Probably Roddy, and that is actually specifically we had Einstein asked, are we going to give boost to Roddy or Tillman? I'd be most apt to want to get to Roddy, I assume, in a situation where Triple J plays, but I don't really know what their starting lineup is going to look like because it not only is Triple J potentially going to be out, which we haven't seen much this year, but they changed their starting center every couple of games also, which does make it kind of hard to know what to make of Tillman.
I will say, I went back through because, I talked about them last night on Lindy's Locks, but basically it feels like something on a back-to-back that you want to be paying attention to with Memphis. They didn't even bring Bismack Biyombo off the bench last time out. They basically said, Biyombo, you're going to be our starter, like our de facto starter when it's not a back-to-back. But then on back-to-backs, I'm going to start factoring in Tillman as the starting center in those spots going forward. Just something to keep in mind for future slates because it's now happened, what happened last week. I think that's going to be the norm for them going forward.
One thing that is very convenient about this slate, so per the question we got from Einstein about how to situate the Memphis Grizzlies players, is when you're just building out lineups, you are going to get to so much of the Memphis Grizzlies because of the amount of value that's on this team. So Vince Williams, Marcus Smart, Zaire Williams, Luke Kennard, like you're going to be getting to all of these guys who are parts of the rotation as is, which is going to make it very easy to make pivots if Jaren Jackson is ruled out. So I actually found that by the time I was building lineups today, because we had somebody in the Discord yesterday was asking me like how I prepare for these injury situations. And I was telling them different ROI boosts I do. And I was using Triple J as an example. But for this particular state, actually, I don't find I have to do anything because no matter what happens, whether Triple J plays or gets ruled out, I have so much exposure to the Grizzlies now that it's going to be easy for me to make changes to whoever I want to.
Yep, I'm with you. It's not going to be all that difficult. It starts at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Yep.
We just got the starting line. Okay, Killian Hayes is officially starting. There you go. Okay, get that off the palette because I was so nervous that they were going to just have it say Sasser and have Ivy play point or something stupid, and I was going to lose my mind.
And one other thing that I'll add too is if Triple J is ruled out and we have more value that becomes available later, cool. I like Anthony Davis a whole bunch as a spend up option, and he is going to be playing in the last game of the night. So this is really like an ideal situation for making sure that your lineups have flexibility where you can just kind of run everything through the Sims for today as is, and then just, stick around, be active in the Discord channel tonight and look for any of the news updates. The news god drops in later because we're going to have the flexibility to make any kind of swaps. And if you guys want to sign up for any package at Stochastic, there are links for that below. And it does come with access to our Discord channel. Let's see what else we have here as far as super chats. True Rages asking us, DK Cash thoughts, who is better for cash, Luka or AD tonight? So if we're including everything, like the most amount of flexibility, points per dollar, I say AD over Luka. But now with that said, like if you have the flexibility and you have the available salary, like you're playing Luka over AD if you have the salary available to get to Luka. But I think that AD overall is a higher priority play on this slate.
I agree.
Let's see what else we have in here. Next super chat is from James Magruder. Best 4,200 or less shooting guard / small forward play. And then also best cheap play overall. So first here is best 4,200 or less for shooting guard / small forward. So shooting guard or small forward for 4,200 or less. Who is that for you, Eric?
For 4,200 or less shooting guard, small forward. So that cancels out Vince Williams for me. Good Lord. I'm just rotating down my lineups here and taking a look. It's a range of just absolute nothingness. The first guy I got to is Zaire Williams at 3,600. So I guess that's the answer.
Unfortunately, it is. It's going to be Zaire Williams. Also wouldn't want to leave $600 in salary on the table, but I do think that is your best option there, James. And then as the follow-up, he wants to know best overall value play on the slate. Let's see. So who the best overall value play on the slate? That's got to be Killian Hayes.
Yep, it's Killian Hayes.
It's kind of like last night we were talking about Andre Jackson. It's like, I get he's super popular, he's cheap, but he's going to play big minutes. He was not someone who's the best points minute fantasy producer, but he was in a good matchup. But more than anything, it's like, what is the opportunity here? And for Killian Hayes, it's going to be an up-pace matchup against the Kings. He's very cheap. And the reality is, because this is a DraftKings question from James, if he was priced on FanDuel, priced him appropriately, that's where he should be. It's probably somewhere around 6K. So at 4,500, it's Killian Hayes by default.
Yeah, whenever you're looking at like the boom bust tool, and again, this is just something that I started thinking about today because I wrote a long piece about how Killian Hayes, people talk about him. Oh, he's a fish play at 67% ownership. Oh, he's, the absolute free square of the night. And the answer is almost always somewhere in the middle. And it's going to depend how many lineups you're playing. It's going to depend what contest you're in. It's going to depend on what else is in that range. But like Killian Hayes, you can look at the boom bust tool and you can say, oh, well, he's got such negative leverage. But the fact of the matter is that there are so many slates that he's going to work out in a winning lineup just because he's a good piece of value. So he doesn't need to necessarily be quote unquote optimal. There might be guys that, are around there. There's a blowout and something happens, but so many slates as you run them through the Sims, Killian Hayes is going to be a piece that you want to have overweight to.
Couple of other questions that we've got here in the super chats. First, shout out to Chris Williams, who gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. Our friend from Apple, Chris, I hope you're feeling better. I know that you were dealing with COVID, so I hope you're feeling a little bit better today, but thank you for gifting out the 5 YouTube memberships. Really appreciate you supporting us in the community. And Shikari M. Food wants to know best value plays at each position on DK, 4,700 or under. So if we had to roster one player 47 or 100 or under at each position, Eric, this is an interesting way to look at the slate. Point guard is pretty clearly going to be Killian Hayes.
Yep.
Shooting guard, that's going to be Kevin Huerter for me.
Kevin Huerter for me too.
Let's see, small forward. I think that's
going to be Vince Williams for me. Zaire Williams for you.
Oh, no, Vince Williams. Never mind. You're right. Vince Williams is 4,300. Okay. So Vince Williams.
Yep.
Power forward, I'll go Zaire Williams, though.
I'm going to go Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher. Yeah. That's my guy.
All right.
Let's see. Chris Boucher for power forward and center for me.
Cool. So we've got that all answered there. Thank you guys very much for the super chats. Let's go back into Discord and see what questions we have here. This one is from Nick Rue. He wants to know, between Boucher or Porter, who should we play more? So it's going to depend on the starting lineup for now, though. And Eric and I are both going to be on the same page based on the analysis that Eric has given. I view Boucher as being the higher upside player. We've seen a sample size on him being somebody that's a good producer. Something else, too, from a strategy angle, it is much easier to go from Boucher to Porter than it is to go from Porter to Boucher.
Chris Boucher turns 32 in 2 days. Isn't that, or 30? No, he's 31. Okay, he turns 31 in 2 days. I just was double checking his age because I was like, he's been there for a while. 2018, he was with Golden State for a game, played 1 minute. That's cool. But yeah, 2019 until now, he's been with the Toronto Raptors, and he's just always been a high upside guy when he gets minutes. It's just a question of him getting minutes. There's been definite negative regression in terms of defense. He used to have guys like, Kawhi Leonard on his team that might have made it look a little bit better there once upon a time there in 2019 when he was just a newborn baby out there. But my God, it is just ridiculous to watch him on the floor. He's one of my favorite players in the NBA that people don't know of just to watch. He's got a 62.4% true shooting percentage. He's a willing shooter. He has a decent block rate, 3.8% block rate. He can get stuff done defensively, even if he's been, a below average defender for the first time in his NBA career so far this year. I just have to play him. Quack, quack, go Oregon.
Do you know that he's older than Andre Drummond?
That's so insane, but also, it doesn't completely surprise me.
Yeah, I remember there was a point in time a few years ago where the Raptors were involved in some trade deadline deals, and people were like, "Oh, how about you can't give up a prospect like Chris Boucher?" And I remember looking at the time like, "No, he's older than Andre Drummond."
Older than Drummond,
and this was
That's
like when
so insane.
Yeah, and this was when Drummond was like kind of on the outs as far as somebody who the public was like rating well still at the time. So yeah, I mean, he is older than most people think, and we know what he is at this point. We know what he is at this point, and that is an unknown. We know he's an unknown.
Yep. But he's also one of those guys that if you don't have him, can put up 40 in 25 minutes if you don't.
Very true. Very true. Let's see what else we have here in Discord. Mr. Coolcam wants to know favorite player at each position on FanDuel. Yeah, FanDuel is tricky as fuck today because they've done a very good job with the pricing. I mean, they did. The pricing is really tight.
It is very tight.
Everybody's about fairly priced here. All right, so let's see. If I go ahead and go to favorite player at each position, he doesn't say it has to be value or anything like that. So looking through the lineups I built on FanDuel, this is who I got the most of at each position. Did you build out FanDuel lineups or just DK, Eric?
I have one lineup that I built out on FanDuel.
Okay, so I'll just answer this going through the lineups I built, the players I got to. So point guard was Marcus Smart, shooting guard Desmond Bane, small forward LeBron James, power forward Chuma Okeke, and then center was Chris Boucher. So there we have it. There we go. Best plays at each position for FanDuel there for you, Mr. Cool Cam. Then we got a super chat from this Chase. He wants to know Hawkeye nuke of the night. What's the Hawkeye nuke of the night?
A damning, terrible organization of a sports team. Go State. My God. Go Cyclones.
Which team is the Hawkeyes?
Iowa.
There's got to be what is it, like 10% of college teams are probably named the Hawkeyes?
No, that's absurd. No, that's the one. There's one team named the Hawkeyes, the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Let me
look this up. Went to Iowa State, the Iowa State Cyclones. So we don't speak of the Iowa City folk. They're scary. They don't play offense. They don't play offense in the old college footballs.
Yeah, looks like it might just be Iowa.
Yeah.
Interesting. I just assumed there was a bunch of teams in the Hawkeyes. Oh, I was wrong. I was incorrect. Corey Shea, favorite players at each position on DK. So I do have lineup. So we got the question earlier from James Magruder, and now I feel like I could answer this more apt to what my actual exposures are now that I have everything updated.
Yep, I'm just about to fire my stuff in, and then I will be all set for you too.
Yeah, so point guard, that is Killian Hayes for me, as I expected. That has not changed. Shooting guard, that is Kevin Huerter for me. Small forward, that is Vince Williams Jr. Power forward, that is very close between Zaire Williams and Anthony Davis. And then at center, I did end up getting a good amount of Duop. I'm probably going to dial that back a little bit. So I'll go with Anthony Davis at center as opposed to Zaire Williams and Anthony Davis at power forward.
I like everything that you just said.
There we go. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Over at 14 says, can we play Boucher and Trent in the same lineup?
Yes. I mean, here's the thing. Trent could end up starting, and that's well within the range of outcomes. They could just say, you know what? Screw it, Scotty Barnes, you got LeBron, Pascal, you're going to die, but enjoy trying to guard Anthony Davis. That is something that's well within the range of outcomes.
They're both cheap enough, and also Boucher is a good enough fantasy producer, and it's a small slate, only 5 games. It's not massively problematic. And then also, it's not like these are guys who can't share the court together. Also, Boucher and Trent could certainly play minutes together.
Correct.
No issue with it all. We're at 14. Thank you for the question. Next super chat that we have here is coming to... Oh, no, we answered all the super chats. Let's go into Discord. Discord. We have a question here from Mr. Sledge to you. Zaire Williams or Isaiah Livers? That is Zaire Williams for me.
Yeah, going to be Zaire Williams, although I am not at the field. He's the one piece of chalk that I feel like I'm not getting to. There's God, I'm just having a tough time with what I want to do with him. I'm going to probably just react to how my lineups are doing in the moment.
Okay.
And also, it depends on when we get the Toronto starting lineup news. Like, if we get it 2 hours early for whatever reason, I doubt we get it. But you kind of want to make some informed decisions on certain lineups. Like, I think that's the thing that the late swap tool is so good at for me, is like, give me my highest ROI expectation lineups in that moment. And then I can go through and I can change a projection here or a projection there based on the way the starting lineup would look at. And then I just want to be able to react to what those lineups are. It gives you a little bit of user opportunity there to say, all right, this is the projection I would have here on Boucher in this result. And this would be the result of Gary Trent getting the start. Like, there's ways that you can do that so that you can have more specific lineups for what you believe that news will be.
Yeah, and I don't have a great feel for what the Raptors starting lineup is going to be. I know people have brought up like, oh, the Raptors hate Chris Boucher, but keep in mind the different coaching staff this year. It's not the same as when Nick Nurse was the coach, and it doesn't mean that the new coaching staff, Darko, is going to like Chris Boucher more than he was liked with Nick Nurse when his minutes were jerked around. But Boucher has seen more increased playing time as of late, and Jakob Poeltl is out. I feel good about him as a tournament option tonight.
Yep. He's just an awesome tournament play. That's really what it comes down to. And like, I think I feel better about getting stuck with him in some of my lineups than I do getting a ton of Gary Trent. Like I feel exponentially better. Now, the weird one for me would be if you ended up getting Porter starting. He's 6'11". He's the tallest body that they actually have access to on that team. You have Thad Young, a little bit undersized, 6'9" as well for Chris Boucher. We've been talking about he's pencil thin. Like, you have an opportunity to maybe see that. I would be a little bit surprised, though. I would be pretty surprised if that ended up being the 5.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. And hopefully we do end up getting this new. Well, actually, I would say hopefully we end up getting the news before the game before locks, but maybe it's going to be better for late swap if we don't get it until
and that's why I'm playing it where I'm just getting more exposure to Anthony Davis, more exposure to LeBron, more exposure to Pascal Siakam, more exposure to Gary Trent. I'm having a lot of swappability in a game that I think has a lot of upside if you can pin down what that starting 5 ends up being. And obviously, Duop Reith, he's a guy from Portland I want. Sacramento and Detroit, there's obviously Killian Hayes, Kevin Huerter. You have Memphis with some value, but whatever happens with Toronto is going to be underowned. Just it is. So I'm kind of building out lineups for that.
See what we have coming in here next. And I did see we have a super chat, which to me is a pretty difficult one to answer. I understand where you're coming from, but Philly Phantom 1 is asking, best pivot off of Hayes in a GPP, please and thanks. I think Hayes is a piece of chalk that you should be playing today. But if he does not want to play Killian Hayes, who should he be pivoting to? I'm going to answer Sasser. You had mentioned before that that was kind of something you were concerned about, is like, oh, what if they start Sasser? Well, to me, that is the guy. If Hayes struggles, maybe they slide Jaden Ivey to play point guard minutes. Sasser ends up playing shooting guard. Like, that could be what they end up closing with. So once again, just to reiterate, I'm playing a bunch of Hayes today. I think that he is a chalk piece to get to, but if I was not, I think in lineups without him, Marcus Sasser makes the most sense.
I'm 3x the field on Marcus Sasser. He's 10%. I have 30. Okay. I think there's an actual upside there.
I remember there was a couple of handful of slates earlier in the year where we liked Marcus Sasser.
And they went well. I remember he put up like 40 against Milwaukee, which was an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, so I think that is the most reasonable pivot to make there. So if you go to Marcus Sasser instead. Now we've got James Magruder wants to know, can we play Reith and Hartenstein together? Yeah, no connection there at all. You could play them in the same lineup.
Yep, same game environment. So they could be... they're positively and negatively correlated. The game shoots out, sweet. The only shared statistic in basketball is the pass to the assist to the bucket on your own team. Everything else is individualized. Duop Reith and Isaiah Hartenstein, yeah, they're going to be down low, duking it out. Hartenstein should win that a majority of the time, but Reith, he sits out on the perimeter and shoots threes. Like, there's no reason you can't play these two guys together.
Next question here from for us here, Eric, is I think there's a lot of ways that we could take this. Joe Lacatz is asking us, who's the Bass Pro exotic play of the night? So here's how I'm going to define
Dickless Wonder play of the night.
Which player is going to come up a little short tonight? Just a little short.
A little short. You couldn't even see it on that individual. Poor guy. Poor guy. He has to live his life.
Who's the Bass Pro exotic play of the night? Who's coming? Who's popular? It's going to come just a little bit short.
My God. I mean, I want it to be based on what I have in my lineup, Zaire Williams. I'm taking a stand on Sasser. That's something that the Sims tools kind of worked in for me. I will say Isaiah Livers. I don't understand even double digits on him here. The guy overall is not a good fantasy point per minute guy. It's disturbing, disgusting to see 26 minutes of him and that he's starting every single time, because he's going to have games where he just randomly walks into 20, but like, that's all he's going to give you. There's so many good pieces of value. I mean, you got to get even 25, 30 out of some of these guys, Zaire Williams, Vince Williams, things of that nature. They're like, why are we playing Isaiah Livers at 3,700 people?
Yeah, I'm going to Isaiah Livers is a good one too. I only have 6% of Isaiah Livers.
So I have 1 of 50 with him. So there you go.
I'm well underweight to Bismack Biyombo right now. It's kind of tricky to give that as my answer though, because if Triple J is out, I'm going to like Biyombo more. But as things stand now, I think Biyombo close to 20% ownership is a little bit much by the field.
I would agree.
So that's the way I'm going to go. I'd rather roster Reith. Let's see, how many centers do I have ahead of Biyombo tonight? I'd rather roster Reith, Anthony Davis, Hartenstein, Sabonis, Boucher, Jaren Jackson Jr. right now, Randall. I have so many centers ahead of Bismack Biyombo. So Biyombo, who I have about a third of the ownership of the field right now. But I'm once again with the caveat that if Triple J is out, then I'm going to end up liking Biyombo more. But right now, I'm fairly underweight to him. Let's see what else we have.
Can we keep one thing in mind for this slate too? David Roddy is a freaking 3K piece of value that, like, if you get Jaren Jackson Jr. out, I will be getting to him a lot, won't you? And Santi Aldama is not going to be playing. Like,
okay, I misunderstood the question. Yeah. If Roddy starts particularly, then yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to keep that on people's back burners with 9 minutes left. Just, we haven't said his name at all outside of like 1 second. I kind of glossed over it. Wanted to at least point out that one of the nice things about having more exposure to that stuff as opposed to the games that lock at 7 p.m. Eastern time is you can get to more of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's something that whatever ends up happening, I'll be in Discord all night until 10:30 Eastern. I'm working an extra 3.5 hours, hanging out with the people, sweating lineups, doing drugs, everything I like to do for fun on my Tuesday nights. That's what I'm going to be doing in Discord tonight. So if you guys want access to any of the packages that we have at Stochastic.com to get access to our Discord channel, where as we play around with the late swap tool and news comes out, I'm going to be updating everybody, as well as Rich and Lee, who are always in Discord as well, just really walking everybody through our processes and what it is that we're doing. So sign up for any Stochastic package. The most affordable one is the NBA lineup generator package. Get that for less than $15. Sign up using that link below, and you also get access to Discord in there. By the way, Luca will play. Not that was unexpected.
Yeah, we were.
So let's see what else we have as far as Discord questions here. Gang Green wants to know any Sasser love. I think he's a good contrarian play, but I wouldn't say I love him tonight.
Sasser Sose, I have a little bit, just a little. I mean, 30%, triple the field. So yeah, I have a little bit. I actually just hand built one of those I redid a lineup here that I didn't like the look of it. So whatever's that, 28% is what I got now.
Got a question here from Father of Three, wants to know who's the lock for 20 max. You're playing 20 max. If you're playing 20 lineups and you're looking to lock somebody, it has to be Killian Hayes.
100%.
Next question is from Steve G. He wants to know, is it okay to play Sasser and Hayes in the same lineup? Considering their price points, yes.
Yep, absolutely.
Next question is from Sotex for FanDuel single entry. How many Grizzlies is too many? 4.
4 would be a lot unless you get Jaren Jackson Jr. out, and then you could play like as many as you wanted.
Brandon Wagner left us a super chat. He says, we want access to all of your packages. Just watch that Bass Pro Shop video on repeat. That's the best way to do it. Get access to everything Eric has to offer if you watch that Bass Pro Shop video on repeat.
Which would not be a lot in that scenario.
And over and over again. Thank you very much, Brandon, for the super chat. We do appreciate it. Next question here is from Eric. Ooh, Eric to Eric. He ended up with Anthony Davis. Man. He says he has Anthony Davis and Luka in the same lineup. Is that okay? Yeah, there's enough value where you could certainly play the two studs together.
I have lots of both.
Next question is from Dominic Cubano, 25. He wants to know, Sabonis, the natural pivot off of AD? Yes. I have 43% of AD right now and 20% Sabonis. So I think that's a reasonable pivot.
It's a lot of Sabonis. I only have 3 of 50 with Sabonis, and I get it. Look at his props today. They are out of control. 22.5, 7.5, 12.5. Like, these are massive props. That's what you get when you get to face Detroit. But Jalen Duren's back. I feel like these are a little bit high for me. I ended up shorting him on a couple of cards. Thought he was a pretty decent short in the marketplace today. But from a DFS perspective, I try not to associate the two because price and salary, those always have to be considered. And there's no doubt that Sabonis has triple-double upside in any matchup. So I don't hate that play.
Super chat from Talus 2K10. He wants to know Davis and Naz Reid or Townsend Reeves. Ooh.
I don't really land on a lot of Austin Reeves. I think there are just so many issues with the Lakers right now that they're going to play the hot hand coming down to the wire. You saw D'Angelo Russell play 31 minutes last time out, and that just kind of put me, oh God, there it went. right away. We almost made it through the damn show. We almost did it.
So I'm going to, there's too many players here that I dislike. So I'm going to answer Davis and Naz Reid because of how much I like Anthony Davis, because I don't really like Naz Reid today. I don't love Karl Anthony Towns. I don't like Austin Reeves a whole bunch. So I like Anthony Davis. He's one of those 4 players I like. So the AD combo, that's the way I think you should be going. Next question here is from Gross Point Zach. He's asking us Zaire Williams, Caleb Houston, or Kevin Huerter on FanDuel. I'm going to say Zaire Williams, and I'm going to just keep answering these questions.
This thing just hates me.
If I look up anymore, Eric's going to give me a seizure. So I'm just going to look down
Kelly
and
Clarkson.
I'm just going to look down and answer the questions. Champino 26 wants to know, is De'Aaron Fox too expensive on this slate? And the thoughts on quickly for DK. I don't have much of Fox or quickly. I have 7% Fox, 5% quickly. There's a lot of good value at guard or good pay up options. So, I mean, like Killian Hayes, Marcus Smart, Luka Doncic is a pay up option. We have Kevin Huerter. So I'm not getting too much of either De'Aaron Fox or Emmanuel quickly. Tensley 207 wants to know Zaire Williams and Desmond Bane or Smart and Duop Reith for tonight. And well, you're having a hell of a time. You just turned green.
Oh, God.
It's like
no,
you
just
became
disappeared. Just disappeared. Whatever. We're back to the camera on this thing. Whatever.
It's like he got snapped by Thanos there for a second.
I am inevitable.
Oh, damn, it would have been cool if he actually melted when I did that. All right, let's.
Thanks,
every once in a while, you have to check to make sure you don't have powers. And if you don't do that,
if you don't, you're kind of weird if you don't.
The force, every couple months, you got to check to make sure that the force doesn't work.
Yep. This isn't just used when Greg and I are together. This is.
Oh, that's what you've been shooting me with. I'm not afraid to admit it that I've tested to make sure I have powers every once in a while. Tensley 207 wanted to know Zaire Williams and Desmond Bane or Smart and Duop Reith. I'm going to say Smart and Duop Reith for that. Nicola 9292 wants to know Brunson and Sabonis or Boncaro and Edwards, Brunson and Sabonis. Snips 1234. How I feel about Hartenstein and Reith in the same line. Somebody asked that before. No issues with that. No issue at all. Mr. Sledge to you is asking us Porter and Schroeder or Trenton Boucher. Trenton Boucher for now.
Trenton Boucher.
JEW, thoughts on a low-owned Sabonis? I like him. I'm overweight to Sabonis.
Yeah, you're gonna make me have to get more than 3 shares of him that I have. I'm gonna have to finish this out now that I'm on my normal camera that doesn't turn off when I update stuff.
Nobody's playing him. I mean, I shouldn't say nobody, but he's right around 10% owned, and he's somebody with immense upside in this matchup.
Yep.
So Sabonis. And then also if Triple J gets ruled out, there's going to be more value that's available later. And I don't mind that Sabonis has already taken up a spot in that point. The next question here is from DraftKings. He's asking us how much Bismack is too much for DK. I don't like Bismack Biyombo very much.
Yeah, I don't either.
Tim Lee is asking us for a cash game core. Oh boy, this is just a flood of questions that we're getting in here last second.
Keep it going.
Killian
we can go a minute over too.
Kevin Huerter, Vince Williams, Anthony Davis. Really a lot of exposure to the Grizzlies.
A lot of exposure to the Grizzlies is the correct answer.
A lot of exposure to the Grizzlies. Then in Killian Hayes, like absolutely have to play Killian Hayes in cash today on DK. Have to.
Yes, you do.
Have to. Is Rudy Gobert someone getting to? Not really. Hitman J asking us, do we think Kennard will start today? It's so hard to say. We don't know. Like we don't know.
He started last game. I think they probably do regardless, but he also is just a dude. So he was the best 3-point shooter in the NBA before he got traded to the Memphis from the Clippers. That Clippers season, he was making everything in Fuego. It's kind of like the Sam Merrill play, but like 4,300. And I don't love Luke Kennard in this spot.
So you're not playing. It's going to depend what the starting
I have like 10%.
I'm going to have so much flexibility to make changes to the Grizzlies players. Oh, by the way, really quick, got a super chat here. So let's answer the super chat before finishing the show. And if you guys haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Justin is asking us, he is full fading Smart. He wants to know, is that not smart of him? I think that's pretty risky to do a full fade of Marcus Smart.
He is a very good play today.
I know he hasn't had the best results as of late. Keep in mind, like coming back from injury for him, and we also got John Morant back in the picture. I think any previous results we have of Marcus Smart, I think we have to look at him as a different player than like a couple weeks ago.
I think that's a great point.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you've not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm heading out to Discord now, which is really just me opening up the app, which is already open on my phone, and sitting here and talking to people all night in Discord.
Doing God's work.
I hope to see you guys in Discord. We also have our Odd Shopper Discord that Eric's in pretty regularly. You guys could sign up for that using the link below and using the promo code Lindy, Lindy, to get yourself 20% off. So go check out Odd Shopper, where I'm also in there, and posting bets as well. But Eric is really the man around the Discord channel. So guys, thank you very much for watching. See you back here tomorrow. Peace out. Good night.